Teenage Caveman. Hey, Dyl, do you think that song is a reference to the movie we're covering this month?
The song you were just singing that was jamming to?
Yeah.
Bob O'Reilly by The Who?
Yeah, Bob O'Reilly by the Teenage Caveman.
No, it's Teenage Wasteland. I'm like 99% sure it's Teenage Wasteland. Like I know there's like 9 minutes of intro, but once the lyrics come in, it is Teenage Wasteland. It's not Teenage Caveman. I don't know where you're getting that.
Well, number one, it's a badass 9 minutes of intro. Number two, I've been listening. This is one of my favorite songs. I've been listening to my whole life. It's definitely out here in the fields. Yeah, Teenage Caveman. Listen,
it's Wasteland.
Listen. Chris is a music guy. He's gonna get here. When he gets here, we'll ask him. He can settle this for us.
Yeah, perfect. Oh, actually, he's here right now. I see him waiting in the wings. So we'll bring him on now. Hey, Chris. Settle this debate. Matt, go ahead.
All right, Chris. In the song Bob O'Reilly by The Who, the lyrics are Teenage
Caveman.
There you go. Caveman.
Wait, guys, that's not it.
That's it.
Fun fact about that song. Pete Townsend actually wrote it as an homage to Robert Vaughn because he's just a huge fan of Man from U.N.C.L.E.
Look, guys, I got it right here. On the internet. The internet never lies. It is after, the great lyrics, Sally, take my hand, Teenage Wasteland. Right here, Teenage Wasteland. It's only Teenage Wasteland. Teenage Wasteland. Oh, yeah. Teenage Wasteland. They're all wasted.
Yeah, wait. Okay, listen.
I'm not hearing it.
It's
you
Google.
can listen.
It's on the internet.
You found it on the internet, right? You where Wikipedia, Google, like those are written by people, not gods like Pete Townsend. Listen, Dylan, I don't need to fight to prove I'm right. I don't need to be forgiven. Okay, don't cry, don't raise your eye. It's only a teenage caveman. Okay, that's all I'm saying. And listen. Teenage Caveman this month on FRAMEWRECK.
What a story, Mark.
Here we go, everyone. Welcome to FRAMEWRECK. Another month, another frame of wreckage. We are here to talk about, as we continue our Roger Corman summer. I combined Corman and summer. Whoa, it's already getting a little X-rated. Roger Corman summer with Teenage Caveman. This was a Matt selection here, and I'm very happy to be talking about it. And we are joined by, of course, Chris Baker Scott. You've seen him on the show before, past and future guest, and now present guest, Mr. Chris Baker Scott. How's it going, guys? Good to see y'all.
Going all right. Hey, let me ask you, since we had to do that intro so many times, do you now find yourself unsure if you're saying Teenage Caveman or correctly?
Tongue twister. Yeah, we recorded that intro several times, which is how the joke about the intro of the song being long was almost like a meta joke of our intro cold open being so long. But hey, we want to deliver the good.
Because you just said Teenage Caveman, and I had to think for a second. Did he say the right one? I'm not sure.
The movie is Teenage Caveman. That is correct. We have fact checked that. Wikipedia told us so we're gonna roll with that.
Well, I've got some news for you on that front. Once we get into that, but yeah, Chris, we haven't seen you in a few weeks. How are you doing?
Doing pretty well. Honestly, just having a good summer with all the honestly good horror movies that are out. Like MattXIII, watched it recently, loved it. Okay, but, yeah, excited to talk about this movie though.
Yes, I'm excited to talk about this one as well. So do you want to get into it, Dyl? Let's just dive right in.
Let's go to the prehistoric times, or so it may seem.
Yeah, with the prehistoric world. Yeah. All right. So we're gonna start with how we always do with Who Made It. It was written by R. Wright Campbell and directed and produced by our guy, this patron saint of FRAMEWRECK, Roger Corman.
Yep. All right was all right. I'm waiting all month to make that joke.
How did it come to be? Teenage Caveman was budgeted at $70,000. Filmmaking took place in May 1958 under the title Prehistoric World. The fun fact about that is that the American International who released it, they had a directive to do historical pictures, and this one was satisfied by that, but Corman and Campbell both wanted to set it in the future, so they did that. But American International changed the name from Prehistoric World to Teenage Caveman, which they both hated. They both hated that title. Years later, Corman would say, "I never directed a film called Teenage Caveman."
Yeah, yeah, and it's not like one of those like David Fincher Alien 3 things where he's like, I want to forget it ever happened. Like, no, he directed this film, but he did not direct a film called Teenage Caveman, which again works for a cold open very well. A little another meta inside joke there.
Yeah, but yeah, so that is the story of how this movie came to be. Let's talk about this movie, because here's the thing. I as I always do, I watch it twice. However, the first time I watched it, I fell asleep at the end, and I needed to go to bed, so I decided not to finish it, and I was like, I'll just get it on my second round. So I had all these thoughts in my head about what was happening, and when I watched the second time, I was like, oh my god, I was partially right about what was going on, and then I was like, wow, they actually went there. We can talk about the ending in a minute. First, I want to talk about how did you guys feel about this movie overall? We can give the ratings later, but I mean as a movie goer. Dylan, how did you feel about this movie?
Well, it's very interesting. I want to preface this by saying all three of us had never watched this, so this was kind of like a blind watch for all of us. And this is very unique because usually we come in and we watch something that like Chris loves that we had never heard of. That's like a really cool like niche like Shockma, and then we're all like, oh my god, this is awesome, this rules. But this is like one of those instances where we all went in blind, not knowing what it was. And I think all three of us were on the same page, just because I talked to Chris a little bit before we started recording. And by what you just said, I think we all kind of figured what was going on, but weren't quite sure of it. And it gets to like the last 5 minutes, and you're still like, oh, I guess maybe it's not. And then they reveal it like literally when there's like a minute of time left, which is very interesting because usually for a twist, they usually reveal it in a normal movie right before the third act. So then the third act can like kind of be the epilogue after we've gotten this big reveal, big twist. But here they wait till like the very last minute to drop it, which I thought was just a really funny device. I expected to like this a lot more because of its camp and its badness, but I kind of ended up just being a little bit more bored by a lot of the meandering middle act. But I think by the end, once the twist is revealed and once you can kind of see the full picture and kind of knowing all the stuff that went on behind the scenes, I think it does make it more enjoyable and more engaging. So I enjoyed myself watching it, though I can acknowledge it's bad, though I don't know if it's like one of those like amazing disasters that we can just marvel at either. So I'm in the middle on it.
It's interesting you say that, because I feel the same way. I'm gonna kind of go off what you just said, which is that you expected to like it more based on its badness, and I felt that way too. I also expected to like it less as a film than I actually ended up liking it. So like it was really weird, because I expected to think it was just all bad but funny, and it wasn't really particularly all that funny, but it was actually like interesting, especially the second time I was watching it. There were some interesting things. There were a lot of boring parts like that. That's true. As far as the twist not being in the right before the third act, it did happen where a normal movie would place it, because it is only an hour long. It's like they didn't have the third act that they needed for this movie.
Yeah, it feels like it comes to the right point. It just ends too soon after. Yeah, that's a good point.
Right. Well, and it's like it's very rare that one of these movies, I think, gosh, this could have been longer. Usually it's like, wow, this is way too long, and that's part of the problem. This one, it's like, if we added a half hour to this movie, it might have been like ended up salvaging itself.
And it's one of those things where like by the end you're like, oh, I wish this movie was shorter. But then when the twist comes, you're like, wait, now we need it to be longer. It's like it kind of you change your expectations. Chris, what do you think of this one?
Honestly, I went into it thinking that it was just going to be like B-movie, like schlock, just like really bad. It wasn't super bad for like a B-movie, and kind of hopping off of what Matt was saying, as a movie, it was fairly entertaining. Like there were some, meandering parts, here and there where it's just like, okay, we're sitting in the scene a little too long, but otherwise, like the story, the ending, like I'm just like, okay, pretty good movie actually.
I think that it's kind of we're doing this summer, we're celebrating Roger Corman. I think that actually is the essence of Roger Corman, because a lot of these movies are that they either aren't taken seriously enough by the people who are making them, or they are taken too seriously by the person who's making them, and they just don't live up to how good the person wants to be. Roger Corman, I think, respects the films he's making so much But he's not ambivalent about what movies he is making. I think that makes for, even if they're not great movies, good, like entertaining and enjoyable films. I think that's really what it comes down to is his love of what he is making.
And I think the frame wreck of it all comes in the low budget of it, because like I think the intention and everything in the storytelling is whatever, but then like there are some corners you have to cut, which I think is where you get a lot of like the frame wreckier moments in the design, in the casting, in the action, in the actual like presentation of it. And I think that's where it does kind of teeter into frame wreck territory a bit, where I'm watching, you know, this lizard and crocodile or Komodo dragon or whatever, and I'm like, this is silly, this is ridiculous. But I also think at the time it could have been seen as revolutionary, because it's like, oh, here's what you can do with a little bit of money. You can still make an effect. You know, it feels very much like a kid picking up a camera, going to his backyard and trying to figure out what he can do with his little mini army men figures, and like this like turtle he found in the backyard, and like, what does that mean? Like, I think it's kind of impressive what he's able to do with the low budget, but it does make it a little schlocky, which is where I think we can get that best of both worlds type feel, you know.
I will say this about that scene between the alligator and the whatever Komodo dragon or whatever it is. Well, besides, if I don't know if that's stock footage or what, or if those two were actually fighting or what was happening, I don't want to think about that. What I do want to mention is that the suit they put on the alligator to make it look like a Dimorphodon, which I know because my 5-year-old is a prehistoric nut. Like, he loves dinosaurs. But so like I see what it actually was really good. This is the first time I watched it. I was like, wow, that must be a suit. The second time I watched it, I'm looking for the seam, and I can kind of see maybe a little bit of a seam, but it looks like it belongs on the animal that is walking. No, you haven't seen that movie, bud. You don't need to see it. Anyway,
he heard Dimorphodon and he's like, I'm here. What can I?
He's in just.
Yeah. He was saying he hasn't seen it. Anyway, so but the seam, I couldn't, like, that was actually pretty good. I mean, some of that's owed to like the black and white and how they knew their filmmaking tricks to make that kind of stuff work. But it, like, that was really cool. There are other costumes and stuff in here that aren't quite as good, or things, whatever. There are some design choices in this that do make me question that. And a lot of it's budget, but a lot of it is you actually probably spent more money making it less realistic by giving them all hair that looked like it came right out of 1958, like by greasing back their hair and.
So well groomed. Everyone was so well groomed, and that was the first thing I noticed. Like, obviously, like when you see them, it's like, wait, everyone looks great. Like, what?
Robert Vaughn just like looks like he just combed his hair in every scene, like he just greased it up.
And I think if you want to sell the twist, it really does a disservice to make it seem like it takes place in the 50s or 60s, right after World War II. And I think if they really wanted to sell the twist, they would make him look more Neanderthal-like. I grew out my little stubble here for this video thinking, oh, we're talking about Teenage Caveman, but they don't look anything like your traditional, like the Geico caveman, for example. I also watch a lot of those commercials and prep for this just to get me in the spirit. But I do really think, though, like, I think it would have sold the twist even harder if they all did look literally prehistoric. The problem is they don't. And then I think you can kind of, when the twist comes, you could kind of be like, oh, that makes sense. And I know we're dancing around it. We might as well just say what the twist is, because, you know, you can go watch it. It's an hour long. Go watch it and then come back. But I feel like now we have to kind of talk about it in the context of the twist, which is the fact that it does take place post World War II. And it's not really a prehistoric time. It's more showing how we can kind of cycle back, and that it could be a never ending cycle depending on how responsible we are with our nuclear warfare and whatnot. To put it broadly, at least there's a little bit more nuance to it, but
no, for sure. Let me tell you about my journey for that. Now that we're talking about the ending, so as I said, I fell asleep at toward the end of this movie, and then I decided not to rewind it, and then I watched it on the second time I saw it. The first time I was watching it, I thought that the moment that the guy on the horse showed up, that he was going to be a modern person, just like a modern 1958 person, and that they would be like, well, like this was a colony of people who most of the people thought they were cavemen or whatever. A la a certain underrated, in my opinion, M. Night Shyamalan movie that shall remain nameless. It actually, the more I think about it, I wonder if this movie informed, I'll just say it, The Village. The Village is a movie I really like, and I think it's underrated, and it has a similar twist. And I wonder how much this movie informed it. I did look up The Village, not for this particular question, but I did not see any information regarding this. But even the dude in the suit, who ends up being one of the pre-explosion people, that he's just in his hazmat suit, and that hazmat suit even looks very similar to the creatures in that movie in The Village. I wonder if this informed that at all. If it were me, sometimes on FrameWreck we like to talk about remaking a movie or what we would do to make the movie better. If it were me to make this movie better, I would have gone with that it is modern day, not necessarily post-apocalyptic, but like modern day, and do the whole Village thing where this is a colony of people who have ostracized themselves to seem like and to raise their people as though they were, Cro-Magnon man, and go that route. And then that guy would have been the random modern person, and that's why they killed him, that kind of stuff. That's where I would have gone with it. But how did you guys feel about this twist?
Chris?
Here's the thing. When I was watching it, because I actually do enjoy The Village myself, and that just was in my head from like pretty early on. I was like, okay, what's going to happen is they're going to cross the river and somewhat on a highway.
Because all those building blocks are there. Like, you can't go any further than this, and strangers are bad. That whole thing is right for that kind of story. It's
so much there. And then when the twist happens, I was not expecting it to be like post-apocalyptic. Literally, I thought they would just like close themselves off from society. But then they're looking through the book and just like, oh, okay, cool. That's where we are. And then the voiceover of just, man, so dangerous.
Well, here's the thing.
Creating weapons.
The thing that the ending kind of alludes to is that this is our future. However, the voiceover at the end makes it seems like this might be our past, and that we are like, that's how we came to be, because he does say, as you know, we did develop bombs and stuff. Like, it's like, okay, well, which is it? Is it our past or our future?
A little nitpick. They called their spears throwing sticks, but they called their knives just knives. I don't know. Like, it just seemed very weird.
I'm going to get to the dialogue in a moment once we get past this, but yes, I agree, and we'll get there.
Well, I think that point could segue to my point in how I saw the twist coming was not because, honestly, I haven't seen all The Village. I know about The Village, and I know what The Village's twist is, so like I wasn't thrown off by that little spoiler there, but I haven't seen The Village, so I didn't necessarily know like the whole close off from society is not necessarily what did it for me. It was the dialogue. It was the fact that they had such a modern way of speaking, and I get like, like you look at like Avatar: The Way of Water, they literally make it a point to say, well, you're listening to it in English, but it is their own language. It is the Na'vi. We're just going to like make it easy for you so you don't have to hear this language the whole film. Right. This was one of those instances, though, where I don't think they were smart enough to be like, well, they would normally be speaking caveman, but like for you, the audience, we're going to make it easier to listen to on the ears. For me, it was just like, no, these people have a very eloquent way of speaking, or at least a more eloquent way of speaking than what we traditionally expect a caveman to be, because the thing is they don't look like cavemen, as we talked about. They have really nicely groomed hair, no beards, and they also speak not like cavemen do. It's not really broken English in any way, which I guess maybe they wanted to avoid like stereotyping and negative stereotyping in a way, but I also feel like that helped me realize, I wonder if these are people, like, I wonder if these are more evolved people, like if this isn't taking place as far back as I think it is. The fact that you would call a movie Prehistoric World in the first place makes me think maybe it's not actually a prehistoric world. Kind of like the movie Strange World by Disney is not really a strange world. It's something very familiar. It's just, depending on perspective. I could definitely see that this was like the intention all along. But the way they were speaking, I was never once thinking, this is like a really like throwback period piece, even though they have like the kind of dinosaur like creatures as well. Like I figured there was something going on. I thought it was set kind of like what Chris was saying, like much further into the future, more so than like right after like World War II post-apocalyptic type deal. So like I was kind of a mix of all three, but I think the dialogue is really what sold me to be like, wait, how do they know what this is? But not this. This hasn't been invented yet, which could be a sign of bad filmmaking, and I think it would have made it a worse film had there not been that twist. But I think now knowing the twist, I'm like, oh, it makes sense. That's the way they speak, and that's the way they dress, and that's the way they act.
The majority of my notes are about the dialogue and how they speak. Allow me.
Allow me.
So, okay. I can see where you're coming from. I thought it was just typical low budget 1950s. We're ignoring that. Or not even 1950s. They've done it throughout history. It's only recently that we've really started caring about authenticity and stuff like that.
I mean, you look at like the Croods too. Like the Croods, they speak full fine English too.
Right.
So I guess for an example. Yeah.
That's for stuff like that. But you look at like Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, like and stuff like that. We don't care. Like we don't care about what they sound like. We're just looking here for the story. Like that's the mentality for 50 years there. And so it's like. But so my thought was, okay, well they're obviously not caring about that aspect of it. However, I did realize that the dialogue almost sounded Elizabethan, like the way that they're speaking. And I'm sure that it has to do with the way that it was performed. I bet a lot of these people were theater people, and they were. It's particularly Robert Vaughn, who was acting to the back row of the theater. Like that was his. That's what he was. That was what he was there to do. I figure these are probably theater people. That's probably why it sounded like that. But there was something almost Elizabethan about it. I have often said that I love the movie Thor because Kenneth Branagh was the perfect director for it, because it feels like if Shakespeare wrote a comic book movie. This feels like if Shakespeare wrote a caveman picture. Like that's kind of how it feels because of the way they talk and everything like that. I'm not sure if it was on purpose or if it was just negligent. I feel like it's not. Part of me feels like it's not, even with the twist. Like, part of me feels like it was just that they didn't want to waste their time trying to make that work because they probably didn't have a lot of time to shoot it. But if it is, it's kind of brilliant. It like this idea that like they sound like that maybe because whoever survived and started this little village, that's what they sounded like, or they were actors or something like that. I think that's kind of brilliant. His dad, though, the symbol, what's his name?
Symbol maker.
The symbol maker, played by Leslie Bradley. He is very interesting. The way he does his dialogue, because he is doing the whole elegant sounding Elizabethan thing, but he's also, the way that he is segmenting his sentences also is kind of trying to sound like a stereotypical caveman. Yeah, so his whole thing where he's trying, like, I feel like that was a good choice for him to kind of say like that. I wish everyone had kind of done that, but then again, that I don't know how that works with the thing, because they don't necessarily know. I don't know how many people know what was happening, if any of them. Maybe that really old guy. But the way that they use their words, though, like Chris was saying, they call them throwing sticks, but every other word is fine. The word that I found that I was like, how do they not have that one, is day. They don't have the word day. It's how many risings of the sun.
Also, to agree with something, they wouldn't just say yes. It was just I. They would say I a lot. Yeah. And it's just like, you can say yes. Well,
that kind of leads into that whole Elizabethan speaking, that whole old English type way of speaking. I also wonder about the way that they name the way that they're named, because the credits give them to describe them as they are, as they look, because nobody's actually given a name, except for at one point they do call that fair-haired boy the fair-haired boy, which makes me wonder, did his parents call him the fair-haired boy? Does he have an identifier other than that? What if there was a second fair-haired boy in their tribe? What would they do there? Which there was one that was the blonde boy. I guess that's how you differentiate them. But
except he's just credited as blonde tribe member. So I mean, can I just run through the list of names, because it is just very funny. Like, imagine on your resume you just see like, all right, so we have symbol maker's teenage son. We'll talk about that in a second. Blonde maiden, blonde tribe member, curly-haired boy, fair-haired boy, man from Burning Plains, bear, tribe member. That's just, I guess, if you don't have any distinct qualities, they just call you tribe member. Black bearded one, symbol maker and symbol maker's wife, and then fire maker. Those are the names. So I feel bad for tribe member because he doesn't have anything special about him.
Nothing distinctive.
Yeah.
You're
But
just
he
gonna
made
be
the
a
credits,
tribe
I
member.
guess. So there you
He's
are.
the fifth build. Yeah, it's Charles Thompson as tribe member is above the symbol maker's wife. So
it's that makes me wonder, like, are they named that, like, because they called him that directly and they didn't, like, nobody questions about who. Oh, there's a 5-year-old. Hey bud, what's up?
I watched it a piece, so I want and I want to find it tomorrow.
Okay, that's fine. I'm recording right now, buddy.
Okay.
Go watch Scooby-Doo. He's watching Scooby-Doo. I do wonder if because they pointed out that name that they called him the fair-haired boy, and that's who he's credited. I do wonder if Firemaker is what they call that other guy. Is that what his mom called him? And what if not? What did his mom call him? These are the questions.
And did they call him
matter.
Firemaker before he could make a fire? Like, was it like a kind of like a prophecy thing where like you are going to be the Firemaker, so you got to live up to your name? It's almost like the Scar thing from Lion King. Like, what was his name before the Scar? Which I think we're going to have answered for us in December. So I'm very curious. But
yeah, there you go. But
I was a little confused at what the symbol maker, like, what's his whole thing is, like, he's creating language, like, or he's keeping record. Like,
it's hard to say because at one point he paints a wall as, I guess, his job, but not he doesn't like draw any symbols on it. He just kind of paints a very coarse wall. And at that point I was thinking, okay, well, they could do cave paintings, but they usually picked a more smooth portion of a cave wall. That what he's doing is really weird.
At the end, when they find the book, don't they call the book a symbol? Like, oh, he left a symbol behind. I wonder if symbol maker is like the story maker in a way. Like he tells
when they're looking at the pictures. I don't know if he's talking about the pictures or the letters, but he does, when they're looking at it, he does say, "I don't recognize those symbols."
Okay, so they are,
or those symbols are unknown to me, or something.
And images.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, also when he mentioned before going out to look for his teenage caveman son, he on the ground he takes like some dirt or something and draws the sun like with 3 times, like circled 3 times or something, to mention that he's going to go after him on the 3rd sunrise.
Yeah.
So that was like his symbol of like mentioning that.
But he said it out loud to everyone, so I don't know why he needed to draw that. But, and waste whatever that powder
everyone.
Was.
Yeah.
Was that flour? Did they need that for baking? Like, why is he wasting that in the dirt to say something also, he already was saying?
Do they bake? Are they able to, like, because they don't even really seem like they grow crops. They just hunt like deer.
Well, what was that powder? That was the drugs.
Right.
That was the drugs that keep them all thinking they're cavemen. So that was the big thing for me, was the way that they used the dialogue. And again, it could just be that they couldn't be bothered to deal with that at all, because I understand they've got a low budget. They've probably got a small number of days that they're shooting this. So I imagine they probably just didn't want to deal with having to get people to sound the same with that and all that. But there is something very interesting. Okay, let me ask you guys this. Have you formed in your mind the theory on who knows and who doesn't, and how the society became? Because that guy was still alive. Like, so it had to have been within I would say, if my estimate is liberal, it's within 70 years. I would say probably less, considering that guy in the suit was probably older than 20 or whatever when he did that, when he embarked on his journey or whatever. But have you guys formed any theories on that in your mind?
Well, for some reason, I think the main guy, the older guy who was obsessed with the law. Oh my God. It's like he wanted to marry the law. I feel like he maybe knew, but maybe he didn't. I don't know. Like, he seemed like he was on it, and then also there were the three elders, I guess, who continuously had their tasks that they were doing all the time.
Yeah.
Did they know? Maybe they knew.
Maybe. I mean, they're old enough that I would think maybe if anybody knew, it must have been them. But I have no idea. Like that. That's the thing. That's why we needed a third act.
Yes.
Yeah. A lot of questions.
I wanted to talk really quickly about the title, more so like the main character, and kind of when I was going through the cast list, the irony of calling Robert Vaughn a teenage son, because that's one of the main criticisms I had was like, this kid is not a kid. I mean, he's like a full grown man playing a teenage son. He's probably not more than 15 years younger than his father is, which I guess could realistically be true as well, but especially given the time. But I was never once, illusioned or disillusioned into thinking he was a teenage boy, which then begs the question, why call this teenage caveman? Why not call it the Symbol Maker's son or Caveman's son, or something that's not
or
like you put teenage world. Yeah, or anything but teenage, like or cast a teenager. I don't know, it just felt like a very odd choice. I don't know if you guys thought about that at all.
I was reading about that. The reason they called it that was because they wanted teenagers to watch it.
Okay. Oh, facts.
Because every teenager could see themselves in a 35-year-old Robert Vaughn, of course.
Right.
Okay.
There you go.
That's the answer.
Once again, that's not an issue that is confined to 1958. That's something that the Power Rangers were all in their late 20s or whatever back when I was a kid. Basically every teen movie was starred a bunch of 25-year-olds. Like that is just true. But yes, I agree. They should have at least chosen somebody with a boyish face, because Robert Vaughn, I mean, he's a good actor. I'm not saying anything bad about him, but he has always looked old. It's kind of like I've forgotten who I was going to say. There's someone, I don't know. Oh, it's kind of like I don't care. Go on.
Sean Connery, honestly, for me,
Sean Connery,
like he's always seemed old. But another thing that I had,
Betty White. Betty White's always looked
Betty
old.
White. Oh yeah. No, another thing that I had with this was I went to this movie blind, going purely based on the title, right? So Teenage Caveman. I thought it was going to be, I guess, kind of like a classic 50s like teen romp thing, like I don't know, like Beach Party Tango or something like that, but like set in a prehistoric era. So I thought he would have issues of like going through teenage problems, or like he has a teen girl that he likes, but there's some guy stepping on his turf or something. Not at all what this movie was, obviously. So the title just threw me for a loop.
Yeah, honestly, I don't know what I was expecting with it. Once I saw the hair, I thought, okay, maybe we're leaning into a more stereotypical teen movie, and then that isn't what happened. Here's the thing, and this goes back to some of the other stuff we were talking about, is that because okay, so yeah, it did end up being a teen movie. What it ended up being was, and The Village also is this, and this is probably why it reminded me of that, even though I think there's a lot more that ties those movies together than just this. But this is the allegory of the cave, Plato's cave. In Plato's cave, for those of you who don't know, in Plato's cave, a number of men, 3, I think, I don't know how many, are tied to a wall, or tied up in a cave facing a wall. And on the wall are shadows of monsters that are just behind them, keeping them from leaving the cave, from trying to escape and leave the cave. What you realize once one of them realizes toward the end that these aren't shadows of monsters; these are shadows of us. There's a fire behind us, and one of them, and then they are able to. That one is able to escape. This is an allegory of the cave, just like the village is, just like the Matrix is. Neo is the one who can see that they are shadows of themselves. Like, that's the whole thing. That is who he is. He is the one who can see we have to go do these things. I don't care about what everybody's telling you. That's the thing. And on that level, I think that there is a philosophical value to this movie. I just wish that, again, it had a third act, and I wish that it hadn't been so much of Robert Vaughn just kind of walking alone in a wilderness, not really doing much. While the interesting stuff was the stuff that was going back at the camp, like it's titled Teenage Caveman, but he was definitely the least interesting part through most of it, because he was just kind of walking around through.
Yeah. And it's funny that you mentioned that it's an allegory of the cave, because when I was watching it, I had to read the book Anthem by Ayn Rand in 8th or 9th grade, and it was giving me thank you. Oh my god, like the damage. But it was of course at its core like libertarian, just themes all throughout. But you have the character who goes against society, the law, basically to meet his individualistic dreams, like of being his own person, and he's excised from society because he wants to do that. Basically, the whole premise of that book. Don't recommend. I will say that. But
hey, at least you're a good capitalist now.
At least what? At least I am that. It's like vitamins to me. But that's the vibe that I was getting, is because you have the one character who is very much, our laws keep us safe. We can't go out, beyond the river where there's plentiful, food to hunt and things like that, and possibly meet other people. But then it kind of undercuts that, because I guess that guy, the law does keep him safe initially because of, not going into irradiated areas. Right.
It does. The message is undercut by certain things, but I do agree, and I see what you're saying there. There's, a lot of it can be applied to really any progressive movement. Like that's the whole thing. It's a thinking outside of the way that everyone else is thinking, trying to. And people like Ayn Rand do take that kind of a story and make it regressive. But
right. You could have that progressive idea.
There is a progressive idea, the progressive storyline. We deal with that today. Like at some point, the first stone. The first stone at Stonewall. Like that's the there's a moment that ideas progress and we start to move forward as a society, and that is that moment. I just wish, again, that had been developed on beyond the twist.
But we did see kind of society going back to, specifically within Robert Vaughn's character, we see him starting to develop like higher tech weaponry himself, like when he makes his bow and arrow. Like he's doing the thing. He's actively doing the thing that they warned about, like creating more advanced, fighting technology or weaponry.
Right. That's true. The message is all over the place. That is absolutely.
Which you wouldn't expect. I didn't expect it to be like. Right. Like when that happened, I was like, when they dropped the bomb of it being nuclear fallout. I went back to that scene of him, like, crafting his bow and arrow. And I was like, oh, okay, that's happening.
Yeah. So, let me just say, from a FRAMEWRECK standard, that bow and arrow was shitty.
Super bad.
There's no way he killed that guy with that stick, with that bow and arrow on the opposite side of his heart. Like, it was just, everything about that was just...
The way he carried it also, like... He just had it in front of him like this and just like was walking with it. I'm like, sling it over your shoulder, I guess, but it's too small to do that with. But yeah.
The guy in the tree got hit on this side, not on the opposite side of where it wasn't where his heart was, through a cloth with that weak ass bow and arrow. When he fell, it flopped forward. There's no way that killed that man. That man is alive. That man is alive and well.
We'll talk about it when we get to our frame wreck moment, but there's a lot of moments like that where the action, just the geography of certain things doesn't make any sense. It's like, wait, you get hit on this side, yet you fall this way. You know, like it's just one of those things. Where the action in it is something else because it happens very infrequently, but when it does happen, it's at least memorable to say the least. So,
well, we can get to our superlatives unless you guys have any other specific points that you guys want to make on this movie.
No, not really.
I mean, all I'll say is that I do think, despite not expanding upon its twist, I do think the fact that it has a twist and it has at least something to say and something it's trying to advocate for, or at least questions it's trying to make you think. Like, I think that's what elevates it slightly beyond the normal frame wrecks we see. Where
I agree.
Mindless trash that doesn't really have anything to say, or it says something very violent or very irresponsible, like The Room, for example. Anti-women, stuff like that, where it's like, okay, all right. But I do think like something like this is like, I feel like there's the ambitions there. And it does actually have very interesting things to say. It's in my opinion, the middle act is just so boring in getting there, and the ending isn't developed upon to like fully make that statement really hit. But I do think at least it has good ideas on it.
I agree. It's a matter. It's the fact that, as I said before, Roger Corman obviously cares about what he's making. The limit of the budget, and stuff like that, definitely were a factor. And if he had more of a budget and more time, I'm sure he could have made something that did deliver on its promises throughout the rest of the movie. I think for what this is, I agree. It's not your average frame wreck movie. It is something above what we would normally cover on this, and that fact that it does try to say something, and is even at least partially, we've covered movies, Birdemic, which I was thinking about this the other day. The movie is called Birdemic Shock and Terror, and the fact that we never said Birdemic Schlock and Terror is the biggest mistake we've ever made.
Maybe we'll have to make another episode of that. Watch it again and make everyone else suffer with us again.
But Birdemic has a message. It's just so poorly executed that it turns you away from it. This is not executed in a way that turns you away from it. It just doesn't deliver as well as it should, and that's kind of where I land on it.
Yeah, good point.
All right, let's talk about our superlatives on this. Let's talk about the worst line of dialogue. I'll start with this because dialogue wasn't always great, but there weren't ones where I was like, that's the frame wreck dialogue moment. There was one that both times made me laugh, and so I chose it. And it's when the guy on the horse from the I guess it's the man from the Burning Plains, when he shows up on his horse. And someone says it has hide all over except arms and legs in the middle. That was when they're trying to describe what the thing is that's coming toward them. They're like, it's part man, part beast, and they're things like it has hide all over except arms and legs in the middle. That's my favorite. That's my favorite bad line of dialogue in the movie.
Yeah, mine again. I don't have like a single line. I think it's more so like the repetition of certain phrases that are so on the nose, like "You cannot go beyond the river." Did they go beyond the river? I think he went beyond the river. Like just the repetition of stuff, and then just like the way everything is so simple in its like in its addressing, like calling people by their traits and like curly hair boy, blonde hair boy. That's the stuff that like it's not the lines of dialogue, but just terminology in general is like my worst line of dialogue. It's just the certain terminology they have for things, and the repetition of certain phrases that don't feel like they have any sort of inspiration behind them after you hear them the fifth or sixth time. Like I couldn't think of one line, but that might be a little bit of a cheat. I will say the MSTK 3000, MST 3K. Am I abbreviating that right? Mystery
3K,
Science Theater 3000. I watch a few clips of them watching this, and there's a really great moment where the cavemen are all kind of like running through the forest, and they're almost making like this like bouncy like motion the way they're running through. And just the guys narrating or commentating are like making this like kind of like bunny hop sounds like ba-dum, 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 ba-dum. And that to me is just very amusing. It's not the worst line of dialogue, but it's the memorable sound bite that I remember from this movie is the commentary on the film. So
nice,
very entertaining if you haven't watched that.
Yeah, I don't really have a worst dialogue per se. I mean, I'm very similar to you guys, but I did enjoy where this went really nowhere. But when the teenage caveman, he rounds up a posse to join him, but like they ultimately like just leave and go back home.
Mhm.
But like when his father is questioning one of them, and he just tells them like, "Well, we ran, and he didn't run with us." Was his answer of like why he's still out there?
That's good.
All right, let's go with our worst actor. Dylan, do you have one?
I mean, I think they're all pretty rough, but I guess Robert Vaughn, only because he doesn't sell the teenage of it at all, which is not his fault, because like it was marketed afterwards as Teenage Caveman. That wasn't the original intention, but the fact that he has to play a teenager and it's never once convincing, and the fact that he looks so like well combed and stuff. Again, none of it's his fault, but like when I'm looking at the performance as most distracting, and I'm like, nope, not a fan. It's probably his, and I know he can do better, so I'm not feeling like I'm trashing him when I say that. I just think it's the worst performance of his in a filmography of otherwise pretty good stuff.
Right. Chris, do you have a worst line? Or not worst line, worst actor?
Worst actor? Part of me wants to say the symbol maker. I guess it would be Leslie Bradley. Mostly because I feel like everything's so big. He's playing everything so big, but like I guess that's par for the course on this.
Right.
Like, everyone is also really playing it big.
This one was difficult for me because Robert Vaughn, I think, is doing his best. I think that Leslie Bradley, who I did mention before that like he's doing the whole Elizabethan thing, but also like trying to break up his words to sound more stereotypically caveman. And I'm not sure if that makes him bad or good, but I do dig it in some way. So I did that. I went with Beach Dickerson, who played 4 roles and did them all poorly. That's just how Beach Dickerson played fair-haired boy. He played man from Burning Plains. Peace. He played the Tom player, which I don't remember that one, but I do remember him playing the bear. And
Bear that was great. I forgot about that.
Almost walking upright as he was running, like it was. So I figure at least fair-haired boy and bear were bad. Man from Plains had one line, and it was just peace. And then I don't know about the Tom player, but the fact that he played 4 and at least 2, if not 3 of the 4 were bad, I'm giving that my award to Beach Dickerson.
That's very funny. Very fair as well. Imagine being named Beach. Like that's so fun. Like I don't know. I mean, like that'd be like, yeah, this is my son. Well, I guess River's a name, and Lake. Yeah, okay, never mind. I stand corrected.
Well,
Touche,
like
Dylan. Touche.
Yes, but
yeah, like this is my son Mountain.
it's Grail.
Yeah, this is my son Hill. Well, I guess Hill is also. I don't know. Anyway, the Beach though. That's a very unique name. What about best actors?
Before Joaquin Phoenix was named Joaquin, before he changed to Joaquin, his name was Leaf.
Oh, really?
But all the Phoenixes had weird names. River Phoenix, Leaf Phoenix, Summer Phoenix. And there was
was it Leaf like Leaf on a tree or like Leaf Erickson?
Not like Leaf Erickson. Leaf on a tree. It's all natural. They all have natural names.
Interesting. Very fair.
Because they were like raised on a compound, like a hippie compound or something. Like anyway, actor who elevated the material. Chris, did you have a best actor?
The black bearded man, Frank Dakova, I guess his name is.
The villain.
The villain, yeah, the one who was obsessed with the law, so obsessed with the law that he would break the law to make sure that the law is fulfilled.
What I love is he contrived the whole situation, and then was like, and it like I guess it was to get the symbol maker's position or whatever.
It did seem like he was trying to do a coup of sorts, but yeah. But I thought it was great.
Like it would have had a little bit more direction, but yeah, he was a good villain. He was very good. Yeah, he was a good villain. Dylan, you have a.
I do. I think the one who I think I was most believable in her role was June Jocelyn as the symbol maker's wife. She doesn't have as much to do, so she has less room to fail. But I did think like when she was talking to the symbol maker, like it was very earnest. Like I did believe that she was this motherly figure, this like the wife to this guy who actually genuinely did care in what she was saying. A lot of her line deliveries were a little bit samey. Everything was kind of the same, but it was still nurturing enough to where I was like, okay, she's a mother. I can believe that, which I guess is the bare minimum right now. But I did think she, at least when she was on screen, I wasn't like, oh God. Like I was like, okay, like this is a warm presence. And she didn't have a ton to do, but I was like, you know what? It's the small victories in this thing. So I would go with June Jocelyn.
Nice. My actor who elevated the material was actually Dylan's worst actor. I went with Robert Vaughn, and not because I thought he particularly did anything great with this role. I do think that it wouldn't have yeah, he's not a teenager, and yeah, he's all well coiffed and stuff like that. But I don't think that the movie would have worked as well without his natural charisma, his riz, as the children would say. That he, despite the fact that I thought there should have been far less scenes of him just in the wilderness by himself, those scenes were better than they could have been if they had been somebody whose smile didn't light up the room.
Mhm.
That's fair.
That's why I went with him on this. My second place was what's his name? Leslie, the Symbol Maker,
Leslie Bradley.
which means that my two were your two worst. So that's where but before we get to the score, we do need to talk about the train wreck moments. Let's talk about that. I have a train wreck moment. I'm gonna talk about it right now, and that is the drowning scene where fair-haired boy exits the movie so he can be the bear and then the man from Burning Plains. Where he leaves the half-hearted effort they give to save this boy in this scene is something. The fact that you can clearly see that he's standing for much of it. For much of that scene, you can clearly see he's standing at the bottom of the thing. But they do have the line, it's the lightning sand or whatever. That's Princess Bride. Whatever they say, he mentions something that makes it sound like he's being pulled down. They don't say quicksand, but that's the idea.
Something similar,
like the sand that or something.
But for the most part, he's clearly just standing. And when he's not standing, his body keeps floating up to the top of the water. So it becomes very not believable that he's drowning, number one. Number two, the half-hearted effort of trying to get him. They try a couple things, and then he just sinks, and no one cares at all. And then it cuts back to the other guys, and Robert Vaughn looks upset. The other two guys are like, is it lunchtime? Like, they don't seem to care at all. They have nothing on their faces. They do not care at all. And then it just cuts away, and suddenly they've split up. They don't mention the fact that they do mention once the earth took him or whatever. But that's not a catalyst for anything that happens to him. You would think that would be part of what they're trying to punish the dude for, but no, it's just crossing the river.
Yeah,
they don't care about the dude died on the way. Like
that could have been someone's, like the main villain could have been that kid's father.
There could have been something that they did with that. But yeah, that scene made me laugh both times because they just try so little to get to save him, and then he just accepts his death or something and just fades away. But he had to play a bear, so. Yeah. Chris, what's your train wreck moment of the movie?
I would say probably the end, where the black bearded man, the main villain, he climbs the tree to drop a rock on the head of the guy that they encounter out in the wild to kill him. Because if you're looking at it visually, how did they not see him climb up the tree to commit this murder? They're looking right in that direction.
That rock was huge. How did he even
how do you climb up the rock with how do you climb up the tree with the rock? Physics.
It was just perfect. I have that moment, but then also just one moment that definitely solidified to me that we're in like the present. It's not prehistoric. The clearly domesticated dogs running around. Just like they didn't look like wild animals or anything. Like they looked like they just walked out of a home.
Right. Like if you looked hard up, you could probably see where their collars were on right before that.
Exactly.
Love it. Are we getting on mine? Yeah. So I didn't have like a overarching like scene or moment. Mine were two little, really brief moments. One I was kind of alluding to earlier, the scene where Robert Vaughn, I guess he's running from something. I forget what it is. If it's like an animal or if it's like someone who's chasing him, and he runs into a tree.
Oh my
And-
god.
And instead of like falling backwards, because when you hit a tree, boom, you probably fall. He goes boom, and then he somehow it lands on his back. And I don't know how the physics worked in that, how he did the full 360 to do that, but it's the immediate turnaround, smack, boom to the ground in the most unnatural way that is just so funny to me. And there's another moment that's very similar is when they see the horse, with the arms and legs in the middle or whatever. And then they're all just standing there. One guy throws his spear and it goes, it goes 7 feet to the left. It's just like, just a single spear. They're all just looking at it and they're like, oh, and you see, boom, and one just phew, just flies the other way. That's the shit that I love. And that's kind of where I do still find the frame wreck of it all, because I'm just the little things, the little stupid thing. It's like the scene in Jaws where everyone's running from the shark and then you got the guy in the middle, going like this. That is what that reminded me of. It was just pew, the little spear fly, or the throwing stick or whatever it's called, just goes flying over the side. I think that is really funny, because I'm that one guy fucked up the take, and where they're all supposed to throw it later, and then he just accidentally threw his spear, but they kept it in anyway because they probably shot this in 6 days. So I don't know. I love stuff like that where I'm that was clearly a goof, and if it wasn't, it made me laugh anyway. So
I have a from that scene. I have something written down. It does have to do with the throwing stick as well, which is that when that guy falls off the horse, he is hit by a spear on the side. The side of the spear hits him. Yeah, and then he falls down and is knocked out. And you think dead, and then he wakes up and says peace, and then is stabbed. But the side of the spear hits him, not the pointy side or of the throwing stick. So those are good. The tree hitting the tree moment I noticed as well. He hits it, and that's just funny on its own that he just kind of runs into the tree.
I was ready to write it down for that. Yeah, I was ready, and then it's the way he landed that emphasized that.
And then he does the thing where he's falling forward, and then he lands and he's on his back. But not only on his back, but the way the camera is, he's pointing the other direction. So it's all very
physics. Yeah,
it's all very interesting. Okay, so before we do the scores, I just want to talk about the legacy just for a second. Corman thought this film was pretty good. He felt that it could have been genuinely good had he had more time and money, which I agree with. I think it could have been a genuinely good movie if he had more time and money. Because I think the bones of a good movie are there. I think the idea is good enough that he could have made a good movie and stuff. But Variety found the film to be good, a good exploitation item aimed at the teen market. So apparently it did capture the teen market a little bit. Hollywood Reporter disliked the film and cited the film's low budget as a reason. Monthly Film Bulletin said the film tried hard but was ultimately unsuccessful. LA Times found it to be a good movie despite its title. So this was actually not... I will say this, because on the How It's Viewed Now, I will say that I have seen it top lists of Corman's worst movies. I don't see how that's possible. This is not a worst movie situation. Even when you're looking at the people at the time what they said about it, half of them were saying it was good, with issues. Half of them were just, or only one of them was it was not good, and somebody was it was. They tried, but it wasn't as successful. This was never an out-and-out failure as far as criticism goes.
I wonder if it's because Corman, everyone kind of understood that these movies were schlocky, but also really fun and good. That this one, by not being as schlocky or fun, maybe is worse in comparison. It's more this is not his worst film, but it's his most boring in a way. Whereas other ones that might be worse are still more entertaining in that way. Maybe people were looking at it on a FRAMEWRECK scale, and that's why it kind of raises the top. Because I think there are more ridiculous Corman movies, absolutely. But I wonder if people are more entertained by them, which is why they end up higher on a list. Kind of like how a lot of people put The Happening high on their Shyamalan list, even though it might be a worse movie than some of the stuff they put lower, if that makes sense. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. I really, I would love to go through and watch a bunch more Corman stuff. And we were going to watch at least one more this month. So it's very exciting. But I do want to dive a little deeper. So,
Chris.
Yes.
How do you feel about what we talked about with the legacy, with the ratings? Do you feel like that what they said was pretty fair?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think it is fair. It's just fine.
Yeah.
It's a movie.
I think Roger Corman said it best, which was that it was good, but it could have been genuinely good.
Yeah.
If they had time and money, and I agree with that. Let's get down to the score real quick. To the scores. Remember, we score out of 5 on the FRAMEWRECK scale, which is for anybody who's watching for the first time or who doesn't watch our show often. FRAMEWRECK scale is gauging on how entertaining it is because of its badness. So something that is very bad and very entertaining because of it is high on the scale. Something that is very bad and not entertaining would be low. Something that is entertaining but not bad would be low. That's kind of how that curve works. For me, my score on this is I gave it 2 risings of the sun out of 5 risings of the sun, because I think that it's good enough. Like I said, it kind of at the top. It's not FRAMEWRECK bad, but it's also like it's not FRAMEWRECK entertaining, but it's also not like bad, like a FRAMEWRECK movie generally is bad. So for me, it's kind of a mix, and I see the bones of the goodness there. So it doesn't get all the way to the bottom because it's not entertaining or enough or bad enough to be a 1, but it's also not entertaining or bad or enough to be higher on that rating. So I think 2 is a good middle for me where I want to lay it. 2 risings of the sun out of 5.
I honestly would say like kind of the same, 2 throwing sticks out of 5, because it's just fine. It's not, there's nothing super egregious to where it's like, oh my God, this is crazy. Like, or, nothing so major that takes it to the next level. So,
Okay.
I'm going to join that train. I would go 2 studio mandated title changes out of 5.
Nice. So we're pretty well on the, but I think that when it comes to Mount Trashmore, which is our Mount Rushmore bad movies, I think 2s across the board does not get it on that thing.
What's
right
on
now,
there again? Just to recap, The Room.
We've got The Room, Troll 2, Ben and Arthur, and Plan 9 from Outer Space.
Yeah, this is not there. This is not there. I can
what
see this
a
filling
list.
a certain like kind of category as like Plan 9 in a way. It's like classic, throwback, genre film, but I don't think it's ever gonna get there in terms of FRAMEWRECK.
No, it's not anything like that. But yeah, so this isn't gonna, unless Chris has a good argument for it making the mountain. I don't think it's gonna.
Oh, this is definitely not going to top anything that's there currently. Those are.
Plus, I don't know if it can make the mountain carrying that heavy stone. I don't think it could crawl all the way up it. I mean,
it has enough trees, maybe. But yeah, no, I don't think it makes it. Chris is historic in that he was on an episode where something went on the mountain, which was Ben and Arthur. I think it's the only time a guest episode has gone on the mountain. So that's great.
I feel like I need to have a goal of going through like my catalog of really bad movies that I know of and finding something that'll make as a guest, finding something that's going to make that list.
You're going to top. You need to top yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So for next month, which is just in a couple weeks, because
this is the July episode.
This is the July episode. We're just late. So the August episode is going to be. It's actually going to be one that neither Dylan or I have seen either, and from what I understand, it's one of his more respected movies. It just has the camp factor that we're looking for. So we may not be talking about how bad this movie is. We may just be talking about how much we enjoy this movie. We'll find out once we watch it. But the movie is A Bucket of Blood, directed obviously by Roger Corman, Titty Ray Roger Corman Summer. I just need to make this list because usually I'll tell you where it's like where Just Watch says it's streaming, just so people can do that. I have never seen a list this long for Just Watch, so I'm going to read them off. It is available, and this is for subs or free. This is not or with ads.
And
this
as
is
of
not in
August 2024, if you're listening,
August 17th, 2024 is when
but
this is being recorded.
it'll also be
So this is the list. So this is subs and with ads or just free, not anything you have to pay for to rent. So by that criteria, it is on Prime, it is on Fubo, it is on MGM Plus, it is on AMC Plus, it is on Hoopla, it is on Vudu, it is on Tubi, it is on Canopy, it is on Crackle, it is on Shudder, it is on Screenbox, it is on Pluto TV, it's on Classics, it's on Shout TV, it's on Plex, it's on Public Domain Movies, it's on Freevee, it's on Cult Picks, it's on Popflix, it's on Midnight Pulp, it's on Distro TV, and it is on Flix Fling.
And if you want to pay $3.99, it's also on Apple.
And if you want to pay $1.99, it's on Amazon. But if
Ooh.
you have Prime, it's free. So
It's funny. I want to put that
$4.99
side
to
by
buy
side.
on
I want to put that side by side to like Night of the Living Dead, like something that's like public domain that's been put ever. Like I'm sure we could find the movie that has the most. This is definitely in contention though, for sure. I might watch it on every streaming service to see if there's any differences. Like if they start streaming
If
services.
anyone's judged it up a little bit.
Yeah, like yeah, like they put a little extra fanfare at the top with the title sequences or something. That was like when Matt and I watched our Troll 2 commentary. He watched it on MGM Plus, and I watched it on maybe I forget.
you watched it on MGM, but on the app. So I watched it on
MGM.
the
You watched it on Prime on MGM or something like that.
Yeah, well, you watched it on the Prime plugin on Amazon.
So his had like an extra lion at the beginning of the movie, and we were just
so we had to start it like 3 times because we kept getting off on it.
Yeah. Speaking of, you will see in the near future, in the next few months, Chris will be back with us to talk. We are going to do a Ben and Arthur commentary that is still in the works. We are going to be doing a commentary for everything that makes the mountain as of now. So if those 4 movies that are on the mountain, we already did Troll 2. We're going to be doing The Room. We're going to be doing Plan 9, and we are going to be doing with Chris, Ben and Arthur. And then if anything ever surmounts one of those 4, we will also do a commentary for that as like you are officially a member of Mount Trashmore. I don't think we'll go back to the old ones that have been knocked off necessarily. Maybe if there's demand for it. But that is our plan in the next few months to get that done with. So we're going to get another frame wreck this month, A Bucket of Blood, finishing out our Roger Corman month, and we will be doing our Ben and Arthur commentary soon in the next few months with Matt and Chris. And Matt, you have some other Corman related stuff to share, I'm sure, right? Did you want to share that now?
I will say this. I'm not, because I don't have a lot of all the official stuff.
Okay.
I will say that soon I am going to be covering every Corman movie, not on FrameWreck, not on the Dyl Pickle Movie Network, just somewhere else. When that becomes more official, I will announce it more. Cool. But
I hope you're
ready.
Okay I helped.
No, that's perfectly fine. Get ready. Start watching your Corman movies. That's all I'm saying.
Cool. Chris, where can they find you? Anything to plug on your end?
Nothing too super major to plug. I can be found on most social medias under Cellar Door Floor. Mostly, I'm more on Twitter. So, nice. Yeah.
Cool. Matt, anything else on your end?
Nope. You can just find me around here.
Yeah, and you can find me around here as well. I will put up the socials just there so everyone can see. I'll put Chris up there just so people can see his name as well as we close this thing out. Thank you guys so much for watching. We will see you next month as we finish our Roger Corman, in memoriam month here on FrameWreck, and we will see y'all soon. Bye.
What a story, Mark.